Hello, guys. Here we are. Ben here from Mouth of the Tyne, joined by Elliott tonight for Transfer Central Special, our first live version of the show. Elliott, thank you very much for joining me tonight, my friend.
Not a problem, buddy. Happy to be here. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, man. Just, wow, let's get straight into it. What another crazy day of transfer links. It seems like we're going for the defensive midfielder that we've been after for so long. We've said all summer that we needed one. It does look like that we are going to get one. We've had 3 linked in the last 24 hours. Obviously Alvarez, Bakayoko, and then today, obviously Dendoncker as well. So that's the 3 what we've been linked with in the past 24 hours. It does appear that we are going to, we're pushing for one. What's your thoughts on that? Let's get straight in there. How do you feel about the names that we've been linked with so far?
I think so. The position itself, I'll start with that. I think we've definitely needed that. I mean, looking at last season as well, when we were able to play Bruno further up the pitch, utilise his creative ability. I think it's important that we have an out-and-out 6, because as much as Bruno is good there and he's effective there, I think we've needed one to basically just let him free. That's why I think at the minute our best midfield 3 is Shelby, Joelinton, Bruno when they're all fit. I think Shelby allows us to do things with Bruno that we couldn't otherwise do. But I mean, in terms of the names, I think Alvarez is obviously the one that gets people most excited. I think he's fantastic player with brilliant ability, and if you look at his cover as well, doesn't just play the 6, can drop into centre back. Played a couple of games at fullback as well. I think he is one where his numbers, if you look at interceptions, progressive passes, progressive carries, is what drew us to Bruno initially. So I think he would be a fantastic option. Dendoncker, as much as, I mean, that Wolves midfield 3 is a fantastic midfield 3. Dendoncker doesn't play regularly, but I think what he brings to us is somebody that, again, can cover defensive midfield, can play left-sided centre-back, has played on the right side of a back 3 as well. I think it's one of those where the players that we seem to be looking at, especially today in Maitland-Niles and also Dendoncker, are utility players that can cover multiple positions. To be honest, I think we just need something. I spoke to you about it briefly. I think defensive midfield and fullback cover are equally as important as getting, say, a right winger. I think the injuries have shown that we're very, very fragile in midfield. So,
yeah, I totally agree with everything what you've said there, Elliott. It's a position that we maybe didn't need to look at so soon if Shelby wasn't injured, and obviously Bruno. It's a small injury, but again. I put a tweet out a few weeks back when Shelby got injured, because people were saying, "Oh, everything's fine. It's no worries. It's only Shelby injured. We've got Bruno. We've got Longstaff." Then when Bruno gets injured, and this is what I said in the tweet, this is where your problems are going to arise, because you've got your 2 men. I like to think of them as deep lying playmakers. Bruno's slightly more defensive than Shelby. Can get about a bit more, but they're like the metronomes of the team that are going to bounce start the attacks and keep the tempo of the game. With both of them injured, you have got Sean Longstaff, who we saw obviously yesterday when we played, and it's like, it's just, has he got what it takes to be a Premier League footballer? From what we've seen, it doesn't look like it. Certainly not in that position as a linchpin of the defensive midfield. He's not quick enough. He's not alert enough. 2 key responsibilities that you're going to have to attributes that you're going to have in that position. You've got to know what's around you, and you've got to be quick to get across the pitch, and to put yourself about. And Longstaff doesn't have those abilities.
No.
So getting back to the original tweet, I said we would struggle if we didn't, get someone else in, and it looks that's the case. But it appears that the club's going to act on that. So yeah, let's hope we get at least one of the 3 in. Just to touch on Bakayoko, that seems to have cooled off a bit today. Is it agent talk? Who knows? But that guy we were actually linked with, and I'd love to find these links if we do sign him, because I'm sure we were linked with him, 5,
Before
6,
Chelsea.
7 years ago. Yeah. When he was a youngster, playing in France before the Chelsea move, he was very much on the radar, and it'd be interesting to see how long Nixon's actually worked at the club. I can't remember when he came in, but was this guy linked under Nixon years ago? Was it someone he's had his eye on and thought, right, now I've actually got free reign to bring in who we want and scout who we want. Let's go back to a former target. If we can capture, if he does come in, obviously hypothetically speaking at the minute, but if he does come in, if he could capture that form, what he showed in France, then we're laughing. I don't know your thoughts on that.
There's clearly talent there with Bakayoko. He's got a ridiculous resume of clubs. I mean, the pedigree that's clearly there. I mean, he's an athlete. He's tall. He's strong. He's good on the ball from what we've seen. But I think it's one of those that it's tough to call. And I mean, I think at the minute, anybody that can just hold that midfield three down if the worst happens, or even somebody that can fit in around Bruno and around Joe Linton, somebody that can fill that void in the number 6, I think they'll do a job. I mean, Bakayoko is somebody that I believe Eddie Howe, as the man, can get the best out of any player. He's proven it.
Very
but
true.
I think, again, going back to your point on Steve Nixon, I think the business we've done since the takeover has shown that he's clearly more than capable as a scout. He's got an eye for a player, clearly. I mean, he probably wasn't unleashed. So,
yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. He's definitely now that he's off the leash, the signings are coming in, and what's funny as well is that when you think back to the Joe Linton transfer, I slated him at the time for it. I said, because he apparently signed Muto and Joe Linton both from Germany, and obviously we know how the careers went until Joe's renaissance. But it shows you that Muto was obviously a bad choice, but he saw something in Joe Linton that not many people have had seen or heard of him. Obviously, if you were really into your kind of Bundesliga football, people might have seen him then. But to the common man, to the average football fan, no one had really heard of him. And when he did come in and he flopped, we were like, wow, like this is a terrible signing. But again, 2 or 3 years later, when we found his natural position, and with a bit of magic from Eddie, Steve Nixon's looking like a talent spotter of the Graham Carr esque, kind of in that role, able to pick a player, a diamond in the rough, and bring them to Newcastle. And let's hope he can do that. But just to touch on what you mentioned there about Bruno, I think you're with me on this one, although I'm not quite sure, just to clarify, but I believe he should be played further forward. I think you lose a lot of his attributes, attacking attributes, when you're playing more defensive. Every through ball would be 20, 30 yards further back. He's having to make up the space to get the shot off. To me, it's like a hindrance. I would assume that he'd be happier playing further forward as well. The Premier League is a very intense league, and he's come from, obviously, France in a slow-paced league where, it might be easier job to play defensive midfield there, but in the Premier League, week in, week out, putting the tackles in or just hurrying and hassling like, he seems to play as defensive midfield, a bit like a terrier type, chasing the ball down. He's going to run himself into the ground, and he's obviously increased risk of injury too. That's something what we have to be aware of. We need to protect Bruno at all costs, and is playing him in the defensive midfield role something that we should probably avoid? I think so. So hopefully the club are thinking that as well, and Eddie, and that's why we linked with these 3 midfielders, defensive midfielders, over the past 24, 48 hours. So I think that's to me that's something that I would hope that they bring in the next couple of days. Just a defensive midfield body. They don't have to be somebody that's maybe going to stick around for the 5 years or like for the future plans, but someone that can maybe come in on loan like Bakayoko and just help improve us where we've got injuries. Also, that's going to lead us on to the next topic of another player we've been linked with, Maitland-Niles, who it seems to have developed quite quickly, that one. our interest in him, at least since the Kraft injury. Obviously, Kraft was going to be Trippier's cover. With him out, it's leaving us very, very short in the fullback areas. I had a conversation with Looney Tune on Twitter the other day, and it was quite a good conversation because Looney was saying, we've got enough fullback cover. My argument was that, Richie isn't a fullback, Murphy isn't a fullback, Dummett's more of a centre-back. He's injury prone as it stands. Lewis is injury prone. We've got Manquillo, who's never off the treatment table. We could leave ourselves extremely short at right fullback, especially if Trippier ever got injured for any significant period. So that's why I'm quite intrigued with the Maitland-Niles links. I think he'd probably come in, and I'm expecting something to happen with that one in the next 24, 48 hours. Elliot, what do you think about that one?
So I think that's a really, really clever bit of business if we get it done. I know last year of his contract probably be really cheap if we wanted to get it permanent. If we wanted to go for a loan, then we're putting ourselves in the direct line to get him on a free transfer at the end of the season. Again, he's a utility player. Really good cover for 3 positions. So I know he played in the middle when he was on loan at Roma, and he played in the middle for Roma, played off the right for Roma, and he's also naturally quite good defensively as a right back as well. So, he gives you multiple options. Touchwood Trippier never gets injured, but I think if we're looking at minimal numbers of signings to cover multiple positions, Maitland-Niles is somebody that's a no-brainer because, again, he gives you that option in midfield to play as an 8. You play wide right in a midfield, play off the wing. Some of his best performances for Arsenal have come off him playing at right back. And I think he's a really good option to have. It just depends on, it depends on what their aim is. Because if the owners want kind of short-term fixes until they get long-term targets, so Maitland-Niles to cover the right back position. I saw us linked with that lad from West Ham as well, that youngster.
Yes, the young guy. I forget his name now, but I saw that link. Scottish under-21 international. So Ashby, is it?
So.
Something like that.
So. And if that were to be a case, then you could potentially see he's a long-term solution for right back. Maitland-Niles on loan, I believe, is short-term to fix a number of problems. But either way, I'll be happy. I think we just need that cover. Otherwise, we get to the ridiculous fixture schedule that's coming.
Yes.
Potentially with 4, 5, 6 first-team players injured, we're in a position where we're in deep, deep trouble then.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I've listened to people's opinions and comments online about, is the squad big enough as it is? And, let's just reassess in December. But, we have 24, 48 hours now, a couple of days. We can rectify these issues. We don't have to wait until December, January, We can, it depends a bit like what you touched on before, what the ambition is and what the plan is. If the club wants to push on this season, we've got the 16 games or whatever before the World Cup. These are important. We can't just brush them aside and say it's only 16 games till the World Cup. These are massive games. We could really cement our place in the top half if we do well in the next couple of months. So really, we should give ourselves every chance of finishing, in that bracket top half. At that stage, if we just plan ahead now, we could bring a couple of players in just to cover the long-term injury of Shelvey, the long-term injury of Kraft. These are players that would be key players for us. And like I've been saying, on Twitter, it's this like shrug your shoulder mentality of, it doesn't matter that they're injured. Well, it does matter because these are very important players for us, especially Shelvey and Kraft when Trippier doesn't play is very important. So I think whilst the window's open, we're going to have to act, man, because it would be negligent to not bring in a couple of bodies. Like I say, even Dendoncker, personally, he wouldn't be my first choice, but the guy was very highly rated when he went to Wolves. He's a Belgian international. He's very good at defensive midfield position and centre back. This is somebody that's he can played numerous positions, and yeah, he's lost his place recently because Wolves have, brought in a new manager and with different ideas and different formations. But, you don't get 30, 40 caps for Belgium by being, a poor player. And the guy's pretty much played, I think it was like 90 Premier League games. He's played 30 plus every season for Wolves since he came in. So he hasn't been that rubbish. Everyone's been saying, oh, he's very, he's limited, he's garbage and this. But he can't really been, can he? Because he's played 3-4 seasons in the Wolves team, a very decent Wolves side who had respectable finishes whilst he's been there. So I'd be quite excited about that one because I think a stature and style of player of his kind of ilk would free up Bruno, free up Joe Linton, and then you've got a really powerful midfield. And also the height-wise, this thing what we've been saying about the team, becoming a team of giants adds another one to the list. I think he's well over 6 foot.
6'3".
So, 6'3". So, you are building a team of very technical players, but also a team of really big, hard bastards. What I mean? So that's something that I kind of like the idea behind. We've had Byrne and Wood and Big Jaws beefed up. You had Dendoncker, that Botman's massive. How many more are we going to bring in that's 6 foot plus, So there's definitely, I think there's definitely been a conscious effort to add height to the side. So we'll see how that one goes. We don't want to, drag on too much about the defensive midfield, but I think something's going to happen in the next 24, 48 hours. Let's see, because I think it's going to be interesting tomorrow. Because although we play in, obviously, Liverpool, the masterminds behind the club, Ashworth and Eels, that they may be doing something behind closed doors. So it's not like the old days where, you've got Charnley sitting in the crowd or watching the game and thinking, oh, yeah, I've got a meeting at, 7 o'clock. I better rush off. We have a whole team of staff ready to, just fly somewhere on a whim with it. Oh no, we need to get this guy in, right? Flight book to Spain, a bit like we saw with Isak. Yeah, and that's how a club operates, a successful professional club. And I'm glad that we kind of at that stage now. So yeah, let's see how it pans out. But I wouldn't read anything into some people saying, oh, stuff might not happen tomorrow with it being a Liverpool match. It doesn't matter. We don't need Ashworth on the pitch. And Eels isn't going to be, sitting on the bench. It's, we've got professional guys now, so yeah.
Might need him to cover right back if it gets bad.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad idea, would it? So right, let's. We've touched on them. There was a little bit of info tonight. Just kind of came on just before we came on air. Came out. There was a flight. One of the lads on Twitter, Syntax, had spotted it.
What a legend.
Yeah, he's a great spotter. I love a bit of plane spotting. Leave it to the professionals, but it adds a bit of fun, doesn't it? It's this day and age of cramming as much Newcastle United information in your head as you can. And I'm sure everybody loves it, man. Who doesn't like tracking the plane? And 9 times out of 10, it's utter bollocks. It's rubbish. But there's that one time when somebody flies in and it's it is actually them. And that's why everyone, appreciates their work. I enjoy it. I think it's really fun. So there was the flight from Spain. Obviously, you said there. Do you think that could be somebody special? A little treat, maybe Asensio or somebody else from Madrid?
Do you think that link just will not go away? It's one that I see it, and I see it working again because he fits the kind of profile that Eddie Howe wants as a right winger. Because his pressing numbers are actually really quite impressive. I looked into it when we were first linked with him. He is very, very good at high attacking third ball recoveries, and I think he's got quality in terms of delivery and finishing. He adds goals that we've not had on the wing. As much as I love Maxi, and he adds something totally different. We don't have goals on the wings, and we haven't for a while. And he adds that. Do I think it's him? No. Do I hope it is? Yes. Because, to end the window with a lone defensive midfielder and then Asensio right wing, what are you?
Yeah.
Just...
And Yeah, it's very true. I don't know much about Asensio. I know he's a great player. You don't play for Real Madrid, for that many years if you haven't got something about you. But like you just said there, I maybe don't think it is him. But that leads me on to like the exciting part of the window, this last final 24, 48 hours, is that something we've never actually had to look forward to for a very, very long time. Under Ashley, obviously, the score. It was a couple of rumours, but usually by midday or something like that, it was always like, we're closed for business. You're always waiting for that tweet. Newcastle United are closed for business, and the club would leak this, to the journos, the league riders, and Luke Edwards and so forth. And your heart would sink because it seemed like every other fan and team in the land was sitting waiting, watching Sky Sports News or refreshing Twitter. Oh, I hope we get this one last signing in. It's fun for fans. Like, not only do you want the squad improving, but it's a bit of fun. Football is escapism. Football is something that's meant to give people entertainment and hope. Something which we were robbed of from actually for so long. But what's different in this window, obviously January as well, is that excitement still there. So, we've just thrown up a random link from tonight from a player in Asensio. But wouldn't it be great if something like that could happen? And now it can. Like the days of just like closed for business on the last day, nothing's coming in. That's gone now. There's surprises in store, possibly. What's your thoughts on that?
I think with the owners as well, I mean, something could just come totally out of the blue that nobody had any idea of. And I mean, that's why it's so fantastic. I mean, obviously with yourself, there were links to Isak a while ago, and you'd heard stuff and relayed the links to Isak for a long, long time. But the transfer itself went kind of dead because everybody was talking about the cost and the wages and everything. There was a problem. And then all of a sudden it was like, bang, Spanish media saying that a deal's done. Next day he's on the way. Next day he's announced. And that's one of those things where obviously it needs to be done with more urgency than a 3-day lead time towards the end of the window. But I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow afternoon it's like we've agreed a deal for someone, they're on their way, deal's been done. Yeah. And I think that is one of the most exciting bits. You hit the nail on the head when you said football's escapism. And I mean, this club in particular, all of us are just, we love it more than anything. And I think what I would love to see is an Adam Pearson vlog late on deadline day of him stood and there's a new signing going into the training ground and he gets that shot. That would just be icing on the cake.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's it. And, the magic of football, it shouldn't stay with kids. It's nice. And like, I'm in my 30s. I think, are you as well? Are you in your 30s or 20s?
No. I'm in my 20s. Thank you very much.
Oh, man. Sorry. But no, like the idea behind it is like, people should be allowed to look forward to things. It doesn't matter whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. We've got our club back. And like you said there, people watching Adam Pearson's vlogs, and that's the type of stuff that, it's the little things what piece together to bring the magic back. We had 14 years of absolute garbage. I was 20 years old when Ashley bought the club. And, I was 34 when he got rid of it. So it's like, I've been robbed of a lot of peak time where I could have been enjoying myself. Still went to games, but was the fun there? No, not really. Maybe it's in fits and starts, when you're finishing a European position under Pardew, that kind of reignited the spark a bit, and then maybe again under Rafa. But ultimately, with the sword of Damocles hanging over you, Ashley, it was hard to really enjoy yourself. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. Like now, it doesn't matter what age you are, what background you're from. We've got our club back. Everybody here on Twitter and YouTube, we're all football fans. And just to be able to enjoy it like how it should be enjoyed, and deadline day is a big part of that, and it all ties in. It's all, ties in the ambition, the hope, keeping us entertained, deadline day signings. But obviously the big picture, new signings would improve the team. So, it's something for everybody. And it's just so nice to have our club back, man.
With what you just said, I think the fact is, for so long, I mean, the majority of my life has been Ashley And I think that the fact that we're now in a position where, I mean, under Ashley, we had that season, as you mentioned, of the Pardew. Everybody absolutely loved that. But I think everybody knew that it was going to come to an end and we were going to come crashing back down. We're in a position now where this buzz doesn't need to end ever. We can be in a position where it's continuous excitement, continuous growth, title after title after title eventually. And it's like, it's unreal.
I totally agree. And it is a crazy time. And I think what we have to understand is we're very still much in the infancy of this.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it, or the way I look at it is, if it's this exciting now, after only, almost a year in and 2 windows, where are we going to be after 4 windows or 6 windows? Because, you keep hearing this thing of like, it's a 5-year project, it's a 10-year project. But in 1 year, the amount that the squad has changed says to me that it might be a 2 or 3 year project before we start seeing results. I was talking to Andy Sixsmith on the show the other night, and he said very much something similar, that we might see results in 2 to 3 years. And, it first might just be a Champions League qualification, then some, silverware in the form of like, a League Cup in maybe 5 years' time. And then obviously the 10-year time, frame, you could be looking at maybe winning the Premier League. But these are just rough time frames. We could win the Premier League in 5 or 6 years. Who knows? Depending on the standard of the players that we bring in. Yeah. It's spreading so fast. It's a bit like a virus, isn't it? It's like, if you look at like what happened in Manchester City, it snowballed very, very quickly. And we're soon going to be one of these clubs, in my opinion, that we've got fans. Obviously, we all already know that there's a worldwide fan base of Newcastle United fans. But we're going to be having that huge influx of like they're going to be visiting our stadium, which is something that doesn't really happen much. Yes, you get the odd tourists coming and, the odd long-term fan from Norway and things like that. But I'm on about like mass trips of like, supporters from other countries. And it's just going to be crazy. You've seen it all before. And, people call them plastics. And, we've had this conversation over the past, like they're there with the cameras out. And would we turn into a club like that? Or is that something that we just don't really have to worry about? What's your thoughts on that? Do you think we could go down that route? Because obviously, you see it at Manchester City, you see it at Chelsea. There's kind of, the buzz has been muted somewhat. I mean, there was a video going around a few weeks back when, someone, their City had scored in their own ground, and it was a kind of like a muted stand and clap.
Yeah.
Really, like, are you actually there? That you're at that stage? So, what's your thoughts on that, Elliot? Do you think we might end up down that road, or are we too Geordie to go down that path? Too crazy, too mental, and too mad.
I think there's too many of us. I think that's the
we
problem.
need to, that's it.
Think, like the thing is, I mean, so my old man, his parents, their parents are all from. I was the unlucky one that got moved away, and it's just. But I fell in love with the club because of my old man, and I always like I remember my first game. I watched us play Chelsea at home, and Titus Bramble scored a scissor kick late on, and we won 1-0.
God, classic!
And it was just one of those where I will never, ever, ever forget that feeling. And I think we're so unique, and everybody puts us down when we say there's no club like it. And there's obviously a little bit of bias, but at the same time, I really don't think there is. Location of the stadium, passion of the fans, the amount of people you see walking around the city wearing the shirt. You've got nans, granddads, sons, daughters. Everybody is just madly in love with this club. And it's never going to change. Like, no matter what happens, no matter how much interest we gather internationally, we're in a position where this club has such strong foundations of local people that are proud to be from Newcastle, that love the club. I don't think the atmosphere will ever get different. Yeah, we maybe have influx of tourism that can do good for the city, in my opinion.
Very true. Yeah, good point.
But at the same time, I think the season tickets sell like hotcakes because a mental Geordie's waiting in 4-hour queues online. That's not going to change. No. So it's
it's going to be exciting times, man. I mean, sometimes it just hits you, doesn't it? Like we have our club back, but I think what's interesting, and I've always thought like this, is that most of us would have been happy if we just had a new owner that was willing to, run us kind of in a moderate kind of way with moderate spending, but a little bit of ambition. But just an owner that cared, didn't have to be super rich. And it's such a juxtaposition that we got Ashley, who was a rich man that wouldn't spend a penny, zero net spend in 14 years, and we ended up getting like the richest owners on the planet. Like it is utterly ridiculous. Like when you just like sit down and think about it, we're so lucky. It's crazy.
It's mind blowing.
It is, and obviously, like I say, this is still in the infancy, so it's going to take off, man. It's like I'm trying to stay calm, and when obviously we haven't won anything yet, just
don't stay calm.
I'm trying to balance that out a bit. I don't want to be like crazy all the time, but it's like I don't know, man. It's just amazing that we've got our club back. So, but I just wanted to grab your thoughts on a couple of little things before we end the chat. But FFP, just a little touch on this. I'm not an expert on it, and just the spending power of other clubs. Just we're seeing tonight. Just looking at the stats here. Like we see Man United spend 100 million on Anthony, which for a Brazilian winger playing in Holland, we've seen this before. Brazilians tend to look good in that league, and we've seen it a good few times where they go to another league and they just nowhere near the level that they appear to be in Holland. So that's obviously he's one, and then we've moved on to Chelsea. We've got the 90 million on Fofana, and the other link tonight is it's a Gvardiol, the centre back. Yeah, so it's like these another 90 million there. So that's you've got like 180 million on two centre backs and 100 million pound on a winger, all very young, and I've seen a few lads on NUFC hashtag tonight on Twitter, basically saying like, "Wow, is that where we are? 90 million for unproven youngsters? Like this is like this is where we are." Like somebody said, I forget who it was. I think it was Dell said that we've 90 million used to get you a Ballon d'Or winner or somebody in that that kind of type of player. Now we're talking 90 million for an unproven, yet talented but unproven in the Premier League centre back and a winger. Both never kicked the ball in the Premier League, so it's like obviously Fofana has with Leicester look very talented, but the other guys no Premier League experience. That's a lot of money, 90 million. But it just like I say, it just kind of it knocks me a little bit that we get a lot of heat and a lot of pressure from the press in regards to look what's been spent by these guys so far, and it's Saudi money. We've heard a lot of that recently. It's Saudi money, but like you say, is it classed as American money? Was it Russian money before that? It's like we seem to be still getting this heat from the kind of powers that be that we're spending money that's oil money or blood money, stuff like that, and it just seems really unfair that we're actually spending quite quite small amounts, really. Yeah, Isak cost 60 million, but apart from that, we spent relatively just nice amounts of what you would expect a normal Premier League club to spend. And then you've got these other clubs spending 100 million plus in one go, and no one bats an eyelid. No one's batting an eyelid where the money's coming from, or should they be allowed to spend that much money? And I would hope that we can change people's perceptions of it as we go on with this clever spending routine what we seem to have of not blown huge amounts here, there and everywhere, and we're really scouting. And some people have been swayed already. Watched a lot of Talk Sport recently, and we get much less heat from certain outlets. They can see the kind of route that we're going down of picking precise targets and biding our time till we get them for a reasonable price. But to the average fan who doesn't really look at our in depth of our business, like we're just an oil club. We're just but it seems very unfair that these other teams are still spending these ridiculous amounts and they don't get any heat at all. Well,
exactly.
How do you feel about that?
I think it is really frustrating because it's selective morals. at the end of the day. I think you look at if you look into how Todd Bowley's made his money, human rights activists aren't going to be happy about that. It's exploitation.
Yeah, I've read up on him actually.
Yeah, it's like if you look at how the majority of the wealthy owners in world football have made their money, you're not going to be. Most of them have heavily invested in oil, natural gas, things that cost the day-to-day individual more and more money as it gets more expensive, but it makes these billionaires ridiculous quantities of cash. I think it's frustrating because, again, as soon as if Chelsea do drop 90 million euros on Guardiola, you probably wouldn't bat an eyelid. But if you look at us spending 35 million pounds, about 43 million euros on Sven Botman, you compare the two, there's a year age difference. Botman, his passing stats are better, defensive stats are better, aerial stats are better. I did a comparison a while ago because Guardiola is one of those that's in that same breath when you talk about young, exciting European centre-back. Botman is a better player, more complete player, and cost what could turn out to be about a third of the price. And I mean, at the same time, we're still being touted as these people, this club that's spending ludicrous amounts on oil money. Isak for 60 million, it's a lot of money. Again, we're signing one of the most sought-after strikers, young strikers in the world. And I mean, if you look at the business in general, 10 million for Dan Burn, 12 million for Trippier, 35 million for Botman, 60 for Isak. The only questionable one is 25 million for Wood. But if you look at that at the time, it was necessary and it worked. Do I think he's got a part to play from now on? No. But I think the owners have been very, very clever. And the more that goes on and the more they pick their targets and they stick to their guns, we're going to be in a position where we build a team that is able to compete with those for a fraction of the price. I think that's something we can be proud of. And to be honest, fans will keep talking as long as there's another club that they can be worried about. That will continue. But
the fear factor.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. No, I totally agree with everything you've said there. I just, it's like I say, I think we have to put it to one side and just enjoy what's happening. You know, we will get there eventually, and you know the heat will die down. Like I say, it happened to Manchester City. They got a bit of heat, but you know people soon forgot about it. And although I don't think they were scrutinised in the same level we've been. For their owners' background and their spending, I think they got a relatively free pass to some extent because there was big money there being spent, especially in them early years. You know, it's died down a bit now. Once they've got the settled team, they're just buying the odd player here and there. But there was a period, you know, them first 2, 3, 4 years when it was like, you know, 150 million, 200 million, 250 million, like every window.
In those days as well.
Yeah.
Stupid money.
Yeah, it's silly money. But yeah, let's see how things go. But so yeah, just your final thoughts, you know, as we draw the chat to a close on potential signings over the next 48 hours. There's pretty much exactly 48 hours to go. I think it's like 50 hours or something now. Mm-hmm. You know, we'll have to get the little countdown clock on tomorrow. Count down the hours. But who do you think, or how many signings do you think we'll make, and who in particular? If you could sign one player that's attainable. Who do you think we have a chance of signing the next 48 hours?
So I think we'll sign 2. I'd like 3, purely because I've still got my mind set on somebody that can start in that right wing spot.
Yes.
And I think you'd probably be blind if you didn't realise that we needed that. But I think we'll get 2. I imagine it will probably be a versatile defensive midfielder and someone like Maitland-Niles on the right. That's an obtainable signing for sure, and I think that's one that we'll make. In terms of defensive midfield, I imagine we'll probably get a player like Dendoncker, but I would love Alvarez. I really would. That would be a player that can hold that 6 role when Bruno's back, when it will be a midfield that is so well balanced because you've just got a destroyer. And then you've got technical in Bruno and whatever the hell Joe Linton is that we all know and love.
Hybrid. I just call him a hybrid.
So yeah, I mean, ideal would be Alvarez. I think we'll sign 2, and I think it will be a defensive midfielder and right back cover. Ideally 3 though.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not alone because I pretty much agree with you. You know, back in the day on Ashley, if you'd said we were going to sign 3 players in 48 hours, I think people would say, "Oh, you're crazy, man." It's like there's no way that's going to happen. But now, you know, there is actually a chance. You know, we've got Chris here saying Alvarez has been told he's going nowhere by his club. I did hear that rumor today. But money talks. I don't often believe that. You know, players aren't for sale. I just think it's like maybe he's not for sale at that particular price. But, you know, I hadn't seen much of Alvarez till the links came about. I watched him and I thought, wow, this guy looks absolutely brilliant. Like, I would love him in our midfield. You know, it's like a real hard dude, but like he's actually got a bit of technical ability too, ball playing ability, and he can score the odd goal. So, I mean, I think he'd fit right in an all South American midfield trio. Sandwiched, you know, Mexican sandwiched by 2 Brazilians on each flank. Yeah, I kind of like the sound of that. But yeah, man. Let's see how that one goes. But yeah, and I'm with you on that one. I would like a defensive midfielder, somebody to cover, you know, on the wing, right wing kind of position, and obviously after the Kraft injury, I think it's vital that we bring a. There's a good one, Chowdhury. We might stay away from him this year, although I do think we have the £750,000 loan fee. I've just had that confirmed today that is there if we need it. It's found down the back of the couch. But, yeah,
in their dad's pocket.
Pocket money. But yeah, so yeah, just that's one we'll touch on. Uggie's, you know, coming in there with the João Pedro. Apparently, he scored again tonight. It's a player that I would really like, and it's a shame that we couldn't, you know, push that one over the line, to use the cliche, when we had everything agreed. I think there was some very finer details of the structure which Watford weren't happy with, or we weren't happy with, and it didn't go ahead. But he looks a hell of a player. And again, he would be a very exciting player to watch at St. James's Park. His dribbling ability, his ball retention, for someone that's only 20. I think, you know, again, in 4 or 5 years, when he gets the same age as Bruno, you know, that type of age, and a player really starts coming into his own, I think he could be a little world beater there. So it could be 30 million, or, you know, well spent if we manage to get that one over the line. But would you take João Pedro, Elliott?
Yeah, he's just exactly what we need. He's that versatile forward player that can play off the wing. He can drop into a number 10. He's just that, like, and what it says a lot that Watford were faced with losing Emmanuel Dennis, Ismaila Sarr, or João Pedro, and they were all gutted about the thought of João Pedro going. And I mean, he's just, there's something special about him. You covered it in what you said just then, all the points, just the way that he operates, how technical he is. His knowledge of the game already at 20 is ridiculous. He reads it. He reads every game of football really, really well. So yeah, I'd love it if we signed him. I'm not too sure. I don't know whether we will. Again, the owners always surprised me, but I think it's one of those where I feel like when they put the focus on the Isak deal and let the João Pedro one sort of go on the back burner a little bit, made me feel like it wasn't necessarily a priority anymore. It
could have been one or the other, maybe. Yeah. And we've heard that you know, a few rumors about the money, but I tend not to listen to the lack of funds, guys. You know, we've spent our budget, you know, especially if it's from the Luke Edwards camp, because, you know, we all, I hate to keep bringing it up, but, you know, at the start of April or May, whenever we were approaching the end of the season, it was like, oh, well, it doesn't matter if you're expecting a big spending summer because you guys only have 40. Or I think at one point it was, honestly, as low as 40 million, what was quoted.
You said 40 million.
Yeah, at one stage it was 60, then it was 50, and it was like, actually, there's only 40 there. And obviously, there's loads of ways around it. You can do installments, you know, you can do deferred payments where you pay next year. You know, not many clubs just whack 40, 50 million down for a player all in one go, you know. So there was always going to be ways around it. But yeah, like I say, I don't listen to the budget stuff because I think Isak showed because before the Isak deal, it was the money's gone. Don't expect any more big players there. We're just looking around for like loans and stuff. And then there's just 60 million just like randomly spent, and not randomly, but to the average person it appears random. That we've just kind of there's obviously been a lot of hard work gone into it, but 60 million just boom over the course of 24, 48 hours. That's a done deal. That one. So what I'm trying to say is, there obviously is money there. It just depends whether or not they want to spend it this window or maybe wait until the next window. Because I've had this conversation about FFP with a few other guys on Twitter, and it's not good. FFP doesn't kind of operate window to window. You're talking about like year to year, and it's looked at over 3-year periods and such like that. I mean, this is basics. I mean, I'm not an expert by any means, but it certainly doesn't go off window to window. That's what some people genuinely seem to think, that it's, you can't go over this window. Well, you can go over this window if you spend less in January and then maybe less next summer or something like that. So, it's interesting. So, there we go. The £50 million budget from Steve there. He's in apparently 123 million spent proves Edwards knows nothing at all. And I think that's all we need to say on that one. Just to finish off, Elliot, I think that's why I'm kind of still looking forward to the last 48 hours of the window, in the chance that we might still bring someone in if the club feels they can add something significant to what we already have. I'm sure you're feeling the same on that.
I agree for sure. It's always been the right player, and I think if the right player comes up, they do it. I agree. I just really don't think there is a budget. I'm not saying that in like a cocksure way, or we've got loads of money. I just feel like the funds are there if we do need it. And I think we've seen that. I don't think any ambitious club with that type of wealth would sit down at the start of the window and say, "Well, we've got 50 million in the pot, guys. So can you get looking in the bargain basement because we need about 5 players bringing in?" It's just like that's why it was so nonsensical when it was first suggested. So we already needed 5 or 6 players at the start of this window, realistically, and we've got 4 so far. So it was always going to be a case of, like we're going to need to spend quite a bit of money. And when people like Edwards was saying 40, 50 million, it was just nonsensical. It was like so unbelievable. And again, it's been proven to be nonsense. So right, we'll leave it there, Elliot. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been an amazing chat with you there. Very excited for the remaining few days of the window. I'm sure you are too. So we're going to do another live show on the weekend. I'm going to get a few fans on. Obviously, you're welcome to take part in that one after the Crystal Palace game if you're available, my friend. And we'll have a bit of we'll vent our spleens either at a great result or a bad result, but either way, spleens will be getting vented. Hopefully, it'll be over a good result. So, right, thank you very much, Elliot. I'll let you go there, and I'll say goodbye to the followers. Thank you, mate. Thank you, Ben. Cheers.
See you, mate. Bye. Right, guys. There's Elliot from NUFC Twitter joining us tonight. Once again, thank you, Elliot. It's been a great Transfer Central show, guys. Really enjoyed this one. Thanks for all the comments. Got some great comments here tonight, and it was nice to see everyone interacting. But this is what I want the channel to be. Going to get fans on. I'm a fan. You're a fan. It's going to be fans talking to fans. We want to see in the comments your thoughts and feelings, and really just like I want to make like a community where we can all come together online and vent after a terrible game with a bad referee, or just bask in the glory of a great victory against top side. So it's I just want to thank you once again for tuning in. Please like and subscribe as always with the new channel like this. I am trying to build it as best I can, and we'll love your help with that. So thank you very much. It's been Transfer Central. I'm Ben, and we'll just stay tuned for the next few days. We've got some surprises coming up. We've got Warren Barton live show on Friday. Now that's going to be, we've arranged that with Warren. He's going to come and give us his thoughts on the transfer window so far. And on Friday, also still hoping to have a very special guest on, the most popular Newcastle United YouTuber at present. I don't need to mention his name. We're thinking about getting Mr. P on, if all goes well, at some point on Friday to discuss his thoughts on the transfer window, because that'll have closed by then, and we'll be ready to assess the team and see where we are. So we've got 2 live shows for you on Friday, guys, in the Friday evening. It's going to be a crazy one. So yeah, if I don't see you soon, enjoy the match tomorrow. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ben from Mouth of the Tyne. This has been Transfer Central. I'll see you next time, guys.